Hey, it's Bobby Bones with some exciting news. Open booking is here for the Top Shelf Country Cruise, setting sail February 2026 aboard the luxurious Celebrity Reflection. Spots are filling up fast, so book your stateroom today or sign up to become a lineup insider to receive the final lineup 48 hours prior to the public. Don't miss your chance to make February 2026 unforgettable. Visit TopShelfCountryCruise.com. That's TopShelfCountryCruise.com.
You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com. ODOO.com.
Okay, but at the end, does his brain go to hell? Is that what we're supposed to be seeing there?
I don't know, man. Maybe.
I don't understand why they can't make any good movies.
Well, howdy there, gentlemen. Come on in and sit a while.
Nice. Cowboy shenanigans. Love it. I will have one whiskey, please.
Sure thing, sir, but that will be a penny.
Nice. Here you go.
Eli, what's up with the whole saloon thing?
I don't know who Eli is, but I'm Elijah Buxom Bixby, and I prepared this here saloon for your episode about the Battle of the Golden Spurs.
Dude, this is just shoe polished water.
For a penny.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Hit me again.
All right.
Line him up.
Absolutely.
Eli, I appreciate you going all out with the pre-episode shenanigans and everything, but the Battle of the Golden Spurs isn't about cowboys.
It's not?
No, it's about the final stand of the Flemish infantry against a far more armed and trained French army.
And Flemish people are from...
Belgium, modern-day Belgium.
Okay, see. Sorry, sir. I'm going to have to take this.
It's my drink. No,
don't worry. I replace it with this.
What? No, okay, awesome.
Yeah, that is the Belgian way.
Love it.
Wait, is that shoe polish and cheese?
You bet your Schwarkenhoozle it is.
Is that a real Belgian word?
I don't know that it's not.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, a podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet. That's how it works now. I'm Cecil, and I'll be tending bar tonight, and I'm joined by the regulars and lifers in this little dive bar. First up, the guy that asks if mango nectar is held slightly above body temperature, and the fellow that wants you to skip the carbonated water and takes his Coke straight, Eli and Noah.
Okay, they have to let you bring your own formula warmer to the table. Baby or not, that's the law.
As we learned. You know, honestly, Cecil, I don't know if that was a cocaine reference or an intravenous soda syrup joke, but I have no illusions, and I endorse this.
It was both, it turns out. Yeah.
Okay.
Also joining us tonight, the two guys that knife fight over who gets to drink the splash mat at the end of my shift. Heath and Tom.
Okay, so I actually got a free night of drinks for that exact thing in real life.
Nice.
It was the splash mat and the squeeze of the bartender's towel into a shot glass.
Oh
no! It was not great.
God, that's
totally worth it.
nasty.
How are you alive?
Why
are
you
alive?
It's just like this sanitizer and beer.
And Cecil, you know that if I don't knife fight, then all those knife fight dance lessons were for nothing. I don't.
They're not for nothing. They're great for your form. They're great for your figure.
Something to do there with that.
It's like Tybo. Hey there, non-patrons. You need to get topped off there. You want another one on the house, huh? Tab's getting pretty big. Okay, anyway, I'm sure you're good for it. If you'd like to learn how to leave a little extra tip, you can stick around to the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Eli, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
The Battle of the Golden Spurs. Yeehaw!
Okay.
we're
All
already
right.
corrected.
What, Noah, what was the Battle of the Golden Spurs?
It was the battle where everybody except the French learned that the era of the night was coming to a close. I'm pretty sure they figured that shit out midway through World War I. But this battle is the one in which the creme de la creme of France's mounted nobility got their asses handed to them by a bunch of Flemish interior decorators with sticks.
And Noah, I personally would like to thank you for this essay, which will inevitably bring back my French guy character, whom I love and have missed.
That was the whole point. All right. Okay, so before we get to the details here, I want to talk a little bit about the role of the knights in medieval society.
Can nothing just begin? Does every story need to start 1,000 years beforehand with a prequel of the starter of the...
It has been too long since Cecil's last orgasm.
Thank
Tom.
you,
Let
Noah.
him have this.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you.
So since the time of Charlemagne, knights were the dominant force on the European battlefield, but they were crazy expensive. Right, like, I mean, obviously the armor and the weapons were really expensive, not to mention the big-ass war horses, which a medieval knight generally needed a few of. But on top of that, you had the cost of maintaining all of that stuff, plus the entourage of armorers and squires and shit that a knight needed to stay battle-ready. And to be proficient in all the techniques that a knight was supposed to know, their training had to start when they were still kids.
Yeah, I mean, it takes forever to learn how to plot your course exclusively using L shapes. It's fucking ridiculous.
yeah, right. You got to think way ahead. But so they had to train so often that they really couldn't be expected to also work.
Toughest guy in prison doesn't work either, but he sure the fuck has a lot of cigarettes.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, right? Yeah, you also weren't allowed to expect them to work.
They had multiple horses each? Like they'd show up with more than one? And like
generally speaking, you would move from one to another occasionally.
You got a horse caddy who's like, I think the brown mare today, sir.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so the cost of training and maintaining knights was in a lot of ways the justification for feudalism. Right, so their three-tiered society was often shorthanded as those who rule, those who fight, and those who work. If the only way to keep up militarily was to have some people devote their entire lives and fortunes to being badasses, obviously the people they protected should feed them. And while I doubt this was sufficient justification for the peasants, it assuaged the nobility's guilt just fine, so that's what got written down.
Cool. Yeah, now we just use Atlas Shrugged. Mein Kampf.
Eli, stop trying to spoon feed me. What the
Listen
fuck?
to the essay, Cecil. This is my job. Thank you for doing the edit.
Now, the ruling class has no trouble making this feudal system work in the countryside, but once a town reaches a certain size, it becomes a bit of a problem, right? The fact that merchants and craftsmen can accumulate wealth without accumulating land kind of turns feudalism on its head by setting up a group that doesn't fit neatly into one of those aforementioned categories. It also starts chipping away at the whole blue blood concept by showing that, you know, filthy tradesmen could get richer than the nobility through something as lowbrow as business. Ew. And speaking of stuff that used to be important but doesn't really exist anymore outside of people's imaginations.
Buying a house or
getting a job when you leave college?
Hand jobs.
What?
I was going to say Flanders.
Did you say hand jobs?
Yeah. Kids go straight to eating ass now.
What? Yeah, but I feel like you could still get the hand job.
So why would you want it, though?
Exactly. Just ass eating.
So I know that technically Flanders is still a place and whatnot, but it's not a country. It's the fucking Quebec of Belgium. But back in the day, it was a country, sometimes, sort of. And the battle we're going to talk about today takes place in one of those sort of phases called the Franco-Flemish War.
I thought Flemish was how you felt after you drank a big glass of milk. Is that
in a sense? So the Franco-Flemish War started to percolate when Philip IV, or Philip the Fair, is crowned King of France in 1285. That's his complexion, by the way, not his ruling style. Now, at that time, Flanders was, as the Wikipedia article describes it, a, quote, semi-independent polity notionally part of the Kingdom of France, end quote. A designation that didn't make any more sense to Philip IV than it makes to me. So he decided to reassert control over the area. And this started with a bunch of overtures to the local nobility, sort of like, you know, I'll let you fuck way more peasants than the current guy type of thing. But when that didn't work, he used the tried and true method of guys in rows with weapons just stomping all over your shit.
It's got a hot peasant standing right behind him at that negotiation. Just being like, Jacques, do me a favor, slide yourself across the table. Slide yourself.
You got it, boss. Ow, ow, Splinter.
Hold yourself in half.
All right, so this French invasion starts in June of 1297. Some of the Flemish nobles that opposed Philip had half-assedly allied with the English, but they were having a bit of trouble in England with the Scottish at the time, as 1 month earlier, Mel Gibson slit that dude's throat that killed his wife. So the Flemish call a timeout in the form of the truce of some Flemish words.
Hold on, there's timeouts?
Give it a
Yeah, well, but this armistice expires in January of 1300, at which point the French just invade again. And within a few months, they're in complete control of Flanders, and they deposed and in some cases imprisoned any nobles that resisted French annexation.
Wait. The armistice had like a best if used by date on
Yes.
and it expired 3 years after the original invasion. I have olives in my Christmas gift basket in my refrigerator that have lasted longer than that.
Right. Now, you have to imagine that for most of the people living in Flanders, this isn't going to make a huge difference in their day-to-day lives. Right? I mean, if you're a peasant farmer in a feudal society, you can have a better or worse landlord, but it's a prettiest turd kind of competition, and most of the landlords weren't going to change. But the cities were different, because different rulers had wildly different policies when it came to the autonomy of cities. Larger cities often would carve out exemptions and exceptions and shit over long periods of time with their overlords, and whenever the overlord would switch, as often as not, all that work would get wiped away.
That is the last time I take an overlord shift from Doug. He never refills the ketchup bottles. That's it.
All right, so this brings us to the city of Bruges, which had a population of around 40,000 at the time. Now, to a modern-day listener, that's like slightly larger than Muskogee, Oklahoma, but at the time, that probably made it one of the 25 or 30 largest cities on the fucking planet. It was significantly bigger than London at the time. It was probably the busiest port in all of Europe. That meant it was also home to some damn wealthy merchants and some damn powerful guilds, all of whom had a lot to lose with the French annexation of Flanders. This was made even more clear when the governor that Philip installed, Jacques de Chatillon, whatever the fuck French pronunciation that's supposed to have, imposed.
I love how you could pronounce an unpronounceable volcano in Iceland, but French is just it's a bridge too far.
Well, that's I looked that one up. I care about that. So, but Jacques de Chatillon imposed heavy taxes and started extorting the nobles that had opposed France's invasion.
You should have taken the deal when I was sliding myself across the table. That's it. It was a better deal. Yeah.
So early in the pre-dawn hours of May 18th of 1302, the people of Bruges fight back. See, they may not have knights, but they do have a militia. Now, and that's actually pretty common at the time, since so much wealth was concentrated in such a small area in cities of that size. And the Flemish at the time had this weapon that they called the Goedendag. Basically, it's a club with a big metal spike on the end of it and a metal ring around the edge. And since Goedendag is Flemish for good day, it's exactly the appropriate weapon to use to bid adieu to the French soldiers Philip had garrisoned in Bruges.
Kill them with kindness. My giant good morning pipe's called kindness, guys. It's
Right.
It's right on the staff.
Flanders watches out the window. Look out, he's got a board with a nail in it.
Yeah.
Simpsons deep cut.
Now, if there's anything that we learn studying medieval history, it's that dead French people are like potato chips. Once you get started, you just keep going. So once the garrison was taken care of, the militia, and by now a bunch of Flemish rioters that just wanted in on the fun, went around town killing every French person they could find. The legend is that when they come across an unknown person, they would make them repeat the phrase shield and friend in Flemish, which was apparently like really tough for native French speakers to pull off without betraying their accent.
Feebleth. I have a lift.
So this massacre would come to be known as Bruges Matins because it coincided with the late night monastic prayer of the same name. It's estimated that around 2,000 people died.
What? This works all over, though. You can try to make a German say squirrel, try to make a Southerner say wash or wash, make a New Yorker say garbage can, and you can just tell.
All right, so obviously this is a bit of an all-in moment for the people in Bruges and for merchants and guilds all over Flanders. Even in a time when you were apparently allowed to call a 2-year timeout in a war if your allies chickened out, they had to expect the harshest possible response from Philip for this one. What's more, because this was directed by town militias and trades guilds, the Flemish nobility thought it smelled a lot like a peasant uprising and they didn't want to support it. That meant that they'd get no help from the Flemish army, which I mean, to be fair, just spent years getting its ass handed to it by the French. So that probably didn't matter all that much.
Okay, wait a minute. The French were just beaten to death in the thousands by like an unruly mob armed with Yo Gabba Gabba sticks or whatever. what the fuck weak ass weapons did the losing Flemish army bring to the fight? Were they using spitballs and swirlies?
But there was one important noble family that was all in on this rebellion. Guy of Dampierre was a Flemish count who had been among the leading voices of opposition to French rule. He's actually the one who coaxed the English king into the mix before William Wallace drew his attention back to the home island. So when Philip took over, one of his first acts was to have this guy's ass in prison. So his two sons, John and Guy of Namur, not only supported the rebellion, they led the goddamn thing. Ultimately, all the major cities in Flanders joined in the rebellion with the exception of Ghent. And I know that sounds like it'd be like 3 or 4 towns, but it was actually quite a few, each contributing militiamen, money, or often both. And before long, the rioters had swelled into a legitimate army.
Okay. Well, we all close our eyes and fantasize about radical leftist rioters saying good morning to Mitch McConnell. We'll take a little break and we'll be right back.
And I am thinking over there. This is where I will put the wine.
Very good, sir.
Hi. Hello. Are you King Philip of France?
That is me. Who wants to know?
That would be me. I'm the head of the Flemish Merchant Guild. And I was
Sorry,
wondering
you
about...
do not sound Flemish to me.
Yeah. Well, not really sure what that accent is. I don't know.
Fair enough. Anyways, what can I help you with?
Yeah. Figured you'd sound like more French.
Like this? Oh,
Well,
yes.
Nailing it. So now that you're in charge of the city,
I have
we just
had
wanted to go
60
over...
sexual partners on average.
Okay. Sound accurate. Yeah. So now that you're in charge of the city, we just wanted to go over some of the trade agreements we made with the previous
Oh,
people who were in
for sure.
charge.
We will go over this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How do you feel about fromage?
Oh, yeah, like melted with some vegetables for dipping. That can be quite nice.
Wrong.
Like, I
Next
think
question.
Okay.
Your army is surrounded. What do you do?
Well,
Trick question.
guess
You
I-
have already surrendered.
Okay.
Manon, I'm afraid we cannot make a deal and we will have to start back from square one, as you say.
Okay. Well, question for you. How far do you think I can shove my good morning up your ass?
Let me see those contracts. I'm sure we can work something out.
Yeah, great. Glad to hear it.
I surrender.
Okay.
When we left off, people were failing a 2-question naturalization quiz. What happened next?
They're tough in Flanders, let me
Right?
tell you. All right. So there are several reasons this battle has become legendary, and I'm going to shit all over most of them in the remainder of this essay, but I want to start with the way it's normally portrayed as like knights versus shopkeepers. So ultimately, the Flemish are going to triumph over a much better equipped and trained force, but the David and Goliath nature of it is often exaggerated by trying to turn the Flemish force into a ragtag bunch of wool merchants that only had a montage's worth of training from the named characters before the battle. In reality, pretty much their whole army was made up of well-trained militiamen that drilled regularly.
Wait, what does a militiaman do to train? Practice parallel parking outside a federal building? Is that?
Oh!
Yep.
Completely different thing back
Okay.
then. Yeah. All right. So another common misconception, or I guess uncommon misconception, because most people have no conceptions whatsoever of this battle. But another way that the Flemish victory is misconstrued is by
I'm glad
assuming
you said it, no, because I was like, oh, yes, I also.
I'm
was-
beating you to it, Tom.
Yeah.
So- but a lot of people assume that the Flemish were outnumbered because this is a David and Goliath type story. As near as historians can tell, that's not the case either. It looks like both armies were more or less equal in size, and maybe the Flemish one was a little bigger.
Yeah, the Flemish army was a fine size. It was cold when they first counted.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Grew up.
So all that being said, it was still a battle that heavily favored the French on paper. The militias trained regularly, but the French had battle-hardened troops that had been whipping Flemish asses all over the fucking countryside for years. And more importantly, they had knights. Right? I mean, it's not like the Flemish didn't have any knights at all. Some of the Flemish nobility took the side of the rioters, but they had like 50 full-blown knights on the Flemish side. The French fielded something like 2,500.
Yeah, but they were French knights, so the exchange rate, it actually tracks.
Okay, I feel like it's not that hard to beat up a knight, right? Like how hard? They got a bunch of shit on. It's like Hoist Gracie against Art Jimerson with the boxing glove. It's even more extreme.
Boxing glove.
Cecil wants so bad to fight you right now.
No. No, they're French. It's fine. I don't mind. It's
You're
fine.
going to grapple with a mitten?
Yeah.
How's that going to go?
All right, so obviously I have to get specific about the arms and shit, or Cecil will be very mad.
Damn right.
On the Flemish side, you got between 8,000 and 10,000 men, lightly armored in steel helmets and chainmail shirts if they're lucky.
Sounds good.
Fighting mostly with pikes and the aforementioned Gudendogs. Now, they did have about 900 archers with crossbows. So on the French side, you've got the aforementioned 2,500 knights supported by 5,500 infantry with about the same number of crossbowmen.
Wow. All right, but what was the trigonometry situation?
Okay.
I'm guessing the Flemish cosecants were fucking sick, right?
Okay. All together, the degrees added up to 360. I didn't check all the
This is a
specific
fun
angles,
thing
but-
we do. I like this one.
Yeah. So,
Triangle would be 180.
So, according to the dominant military theories of the day, a knight is considered to have the same basic value as 10 infantrymen. So, while it's entirely possible that the Flemish army had a slight numeric advantage, the way that the French were doing the math, they were up better than 3-1. But the Flemish had this huge advantage of being on the defensive. So, the French were marching on Bruges, but to get there, they had to go through a town called Courtrai, and at that moment, the Flemish forces were actually laying siege to a castle there, which housed a French garrison. So when they hear the French are coming, they dig in and prepare to face off.
The enemy approaches. We'll never prepare for the battle in time.
No, we're good. Just like turn around. Just right there. Just what? Yeah, just like there you go. Now you're prepared because you turned around.
Prepared. Yeah, okay, that was a lot easier than I thought, actually.
Oh, also get your board with the nail in it. They hate that for some reason.
All right, so the French force is being led by a dude named Robert II, Count of Artois, and this guy was almost just the subject of the episode. He was a seasoned military leader and crusader, and also a dude with a weird fascination with automatons. Like he had a park filled with wind-up mechanical monkeys and shit.
You go back far enough in time, people just wore their browser history on their sleeve, man.
Right?
Yep.
Right? He had a fucking pet wolf that he made like the peasants just put up with, even though it like, killed his kids. And shit. He's fucking weird. But despite the wind-up monkeys, he had the reputation as a formidable commander before this battle.
No illusions. Look at me. If his army of robot monkeys isn't a part of this battle, I will be furious.
All right. So it starts, get ready to be furious. I'm sorry. So it starts when his scouts come back and give him the lay of the land. The Flemish army had dug in with the city's wall right behind him and a marshy, swampy field in front. And that's actually super smart. Right? They recognize that their big weakness is their lack of cavalry. They can counteract that to a significant degree by forcing the battle onto marshy ground where horses can't really charge. In addition to the marshiness, the Flemish had dug a bunch of ditches and built long lines of tree branches and felled trees and shit like that, which would also slow down their charge. On the other hand, there's a big ass wall behind them, so they have nowhere to go if the French do break their line.
Okay, it feels like you just go around, right? Or like take the rest of the city, or just fucking wait there. I like whatever you do. Don't have your horses, playing "The Floor Is Lava" on tree trunks through a marsh.
I don't know. No, it seems like knights are pretty badass, but not if they just like tip over. I'm just picturing like 1,000 Flemish soldiers equipped with Goonies-style slick shoes walking slowly backwards as they're being pursued.
It's almost exactly what you should be picturing, Tom. All right, so the solution's pretty obvious, right? Robert's advisors tell him, hey, like, we could just hang back and pelt the Flemish forces with arrows. They can't go anywhere, but that's boring. Robert didn't want to deprive his noblemen of their glory, goddammit, and shooting other guys with arrows. That's not action-y or exciting. So
unless
after
you're the one getting hit by the arrow, in which case I suspect you're not terribly bored.
Well, it was too boring for Robert, goddammit. So after a brief exchange of missiles, despite the fact that it was literally impossible given the terrain, Robert ordered his cavalry to charge. Going to turn out this was a terrible decision, and the first people to get any hint of that would be the French infantry that are standing on this marshy ground between the cavalry and the Flemish armor, and can't get out of the way before being trampled to death in this initial charge.
This guy ran over his own troops with a charge doomed to fail. I guess you could be a commander back then by putting your helmet on, eye slits forward.
Or not.
You're hired.
Yeah. I miss those halcyon days of high standards and representation too, Cecil.
Yeah.
I miss it too.
Okay, too true. It's I believe these guys are in charge of distributing our vaccines.
Right. No.
So, despite the terrain, the French cavalry makes it across
Operation
the field.
Warp Steed.
Well done. All right, so despite the terrain, the French cavalry makes it across the field pretty quickly, but they can't build up the kind of momentum you need to really crash through the Flemish shield wall. The Flemish crossbowmen, who had been pelting the knights all the way across, fell back and behind their pikemen. And at this point, the Wikipedia article literally points out that, quote, a great noise rose throughout the dramatic battle scene, end quote. And yes, there's a citation on that, in case you thought the two armies crashed into each other discreetly, I guess.
Well, I mean, it also kind of implies that up until this point, it was pretty quiet, and then it got suddenly loud.
So all of a sudden.
All the French guys before just getting smushed by their own forces were like, quiet, Jacques, this is a friendly trample, no need to bellier.
Be very, very quiet. We are sneaking up on Flemish. Yeah. Okay, so the French army crashes into the line loudly, but the militiamen, by and large, don't budge. The pikes that they're using have big spear points at the end, but they also have these curved blades that kind of act like a can opener that you can use to pry open the armor as soon as the knight is knocked off his steed.
Ah, yes. Defeated by Sir Octo of Good Grips.
Exactly. So as soon as one guy can pry two plates apart, another guy will just start stabbing away.
Oh, look, that's my codpiece. Oh, assholes.
So they had a better codpiece. All right, so the French cavalry is decimated in this initial charge. And worse than the dudes that crashed impotently against the lines, the few French cavalry that actually did break through quickly find themselves surrounded, pulled off their horses, and beat to death with good days.
Yeah. Plus, that French commander clearly got distracted by the big field of wind-up monkeys set up by the Flemish.
Thank you, Heath. Thank you. Also, just for the record, Beat to Death with Good Days is at the very center of my 2021 vision board.
Oh, yeah, well done.
Also, fucking wind-up monkeys in the big field. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm adding that to mine.
Man, hell yeah, man. All right, so the guy leading the Flemish army is a dude by the name of William of Ulick, and before the battle got underway, he dismounted and he took a spot with the pikemen right in the front lines and everything, and that sounds super brave, but pretty much exactly at the time that the bad guys got there, he had some kind of non-specific injury, and he collapsed and had to be taken back to the rear, or checking the fuck out. One way or the other, one of his servants, fearing that his absence would dishearten the army, put on his armor and charged back out onto the field, pretending to be him.
He's riding two other servants wearing the horse armor.
Well, but here's the thing, though. The servant got himself killed, so I can't imagine that was a super positive effect he had on the morale.
They had to dress like the commander of the soldiers, or the soldiers are going to freak out. The soldiers back then are like nervous dogs with separation anxiety. At the barracks, they had to play the TV on low in the background, and they couldn't calm down, you know?
The whole Flemish uniform is just a bunch of dudes wearing thunder shorts and whining in the back of their mouths.
All right, exactly.
All right, so regardless, though, the French knights were getting their asses kicked, and many of them were starting to retreat. Robert of Artois sees this, and he decides that he's going to turn the tide of the battle by charging in himself, along with his rear guard of 700 men-at-arms. And then he got himself killed, so that probably didn't help much either. And one of the legends, by the way, of this battle is that he begged for his life after he was felled, and all the Flemish soldiers pretended they didn't speak French. All of a sudden, they're like, "Shield new friend, motherfucker." Another version says that it was his beloved war horse that he begged them to spare because I guess that makes him sound like less wimpy.
They'll stand around him. Say shield without a lisp, and you can live. Go ahead.
More importantly, if you're begging for the life of your horse, I'm going to assume you're fucking that horse. There's nothing you're going to say.
All right, so with Robert dead, the rout started, right? The French enacted a hasty retreat, but at this point you have like unhorsed, heavily armored knights trying to run across the muddy field. Needless to say, the Flemish light infantry didn't have much trouble catching up with them. The French garrison that was still under siege in the city eventually charged out to try to turn the tide of battle themselves, but William of Ulick was smart enough to have left a contingent at the gate for just such an occasion, and they were cut down without any issue at all.
Bunch of like teenage phlegms or whatever they're called standing in the field like, okay, what do you mean you've never gone night tipping before? You just lean your shoulder.
Dude, it's fucking awesome. All right, so the Wikipedia article has this awesome quote from the Annals of Ghent that summarizes the battle. Quote, "And so, by the disposition of God, who orders all things, the art of war, the flower of knighthood, with horses and chargers of the finest, fell before weavers, fullers, and the common folk and foot soldiers of Flanders, albeit strong, manly, well-armed, courageous, and under expert leaders. The beauty and strength of that great French army was turned into a dung pit, and the glory of the French made into dung and worms."
Wow, they
End
turned
quote.
the French into English food. That sucks.
I was thinking French food, but sure, yeah. So in the wake of the battle, Flanders consolidated control over the country, paving the way for the formation of both Belgium and the Netherlands as independent nations. The French lost between 1,000 and 1,500 men, some 5 to 10 times the Flemish losses, including at least 75 important nobles. The Flemish army is said to have gone out over the battlefield afterwards and collected 500 pairs of golden spurs, which were then nailed to the wall of a nearby church, giving the battle its name, the Battle of the Golden Spurs. And while that number is almost certainly exaggerated, there's no doubt that a significant number of actual golden spurs were captured.
Yeah, and that church got a weird accidental message about including more horses in the Bible.
Yeah.
But what the battle is most remembered for is what it represented in terms of military tactics. It was the first real example of what's been called the infantry revolution, which effectively ended the era of the heavily armored knight. It meant that a comparatively inexpensive militia could defeat an insanely expensive army with good training and decent tactics. That's all you needed. And if you want to know how well the French absorbed that lesson, I should remind you that they would go on to lose the Battle of Agincourt in pretty much the exact same goddamn way 113 years later.
And if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be?
It should surprise nobody that modern-day France is surrounded by tiny little bullshit countries like Andorra and Monaco.
And are you ready for the quiz?
I'm behind a marshy field with a wall behind me and everything.
Okay, Noah. So the monkey fucker.
Thank you.
Question about that. If you can't afford a robotic monkey theme park like that guy apparently had, which of the following is the best way to meet local single monkeys in your area? A, macocktail bars. B, cappuccino bars.
Very well done. Very well done.
It's hard to say it.
I like that one a lot.
C, Bumble in the Jungle. D, Zoo. Zeus. Or E, Organ Grinder.
Fantastic.
That's a good one, too.
Oh, wow, dude. I thought you'd peaked with macocktail bars, but no, I'm going to have to go E, organ grinder.
That is correct. It is Organ Grinder.
Amazing.
All right. Noah, if I understand the lesson here, it's that you can't always win by shitting money at a problem that a nimble mind would better solve. This is true, except A, most of the time. B, money really does fix a lot of problems. Or C, no, seriously, my bet is definitely on the money.
I'm going to go with D, more than most of the time.
Almost all the time.
All right, Noah, if I had to point to Brussels on a map, where would I point? A, Germany. B, Germany again, but like at the top?
Yeah.
C. Sweden.
Even older.
D. Back to Germany, just in case it was a trick question.
Okay, wait. There is a 0% chance that you would point to different places if I said Germany, Northern Germany, or Sweden. So I'm going to go with secret answer E, just way vaguely towards Europe.
That is correct.
No,
It's not correct. It's not correct at all.
I know where Germany
It's
is.
one of those other ones.
I don't think you'd start at something
It's
as close as Germany for the correct, even at A. I don't think you'd get right to Germany there.
I was just visiting my grandparents' assers.
Oh, Eli wins for that.
Great.
You win. Yay! I want Tom to do an essay next week.
All right. Yeah. Well,
Playing
for
the
Heath,
Holocaust card. Wow.
Eli, Tom, and Noah, I'm Cecil. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can listen to any other podcast, and it's probably one of ours. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. If you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
Another one. Give me another one. This is really good.
Coming right up.
Hey, how much shoe polish and cheese can he drink anyway?
I mean, it seems like a lot, right?
It does seem that way, yeah.